Hey, so today I'm doing a bit of a different video. Um, I'm going to talk about what I was reading, what I plan to be reading in 2024, and I'm going to make a small mention of how I've got here. So, at this time last year, I realised I had never heard the phrase booktube. Someone said it to me and I blanked, I had no idea. And so, in just a few months, I've gone to a channel with a lot of videos and quite a few viewers. So thank you, all you viewers, and thank you, subscribers. I feel very grateful and a little bit awed that people want to watch my reviews. I love writing them. I love reading the books. I'm thrilled that other people get something from my reviews and from my reading experience as well. How did I come to YouTube? Well, through Goodreads. Like so many readers, Goodreads was my alma mater, I suppose, for many years. I think I signed up in 2011 with the intention of remembering the books I'd read. So for a few years, I didn't really do very much with it. But slowly it started to change my reading and certainly my reviewing, and I hope YouTube does the same for me. So I'm going to start with the reading challenge. Now, I suspect that most people who watch this channel are well familiar with Goodreads, and you probably do reading challenges on there as well. In 2011, when I joined Goodreads, I had never done a reading challenge since school. So that's been an interesting journey. One thing that YouTube does is it invites you to set your reading challenge for the year, like a goal of how many books you're going to read. And looking back over the years, I first did that in 2013, and in 2013 I had no idea how many books a year I read. So I set a goal of 60 books for the year, based on other people around me. And at the end of 2013, Goodreads said to me, completed, congrats, you read 73 books out of your goal of 60. And I went, wow, didn't know I read that much. In fact, I read a lot more because those 73 books that I counted were all new books. I didn't count rereads, and I reread a lot. I didn't count comics or trade paperbacks because I wasn't sure if that was a real book. I didn't count short story collections. The things I didn't count were multiples. So going through, I escalated to 80 books and I surpassed that. 100, 130, 120. In 2018, I set a goal of 160 books, and for the first time I didn't complete my challenge. I only read 143 that year. But in 2020, I reached the 170, which was my goal for that year. In 2022, once again I failed. I'd set a goal of 200 books and I didn't quite make that. Even with trade paperbacks and rereads, I only read 197. And last year, I set a goal of 116 and I surpassed it, reading 163 books, and that includes the trade paperbacks, the rereads, etc. This year, when Goodreads invited me to set a challenge, I sat down and I thought long and hard. Goodreads wants to challenge you to read more. At nearly 200 books a year, I don't think that I was getting the fullest reading experience. And bear in mind, I review every single book I read for the first time, so that I will remember it, and I re-review many books that I've read in the past as well. So this year, 2024, my goal is to read 100 books. I won't make it. I know I'm going to read more than that. I can't help myself. But this year, I want to slow down. I want to read the thick books. I've got several non-fiction books. I read them slowly. I haven't seen a lot of trade paperbacks coming out in recent years that were great and that I wanted to read. So Goodreads 2024 reading challenge for me is going to be 100 books, and I'm going to try and slow down. YouTube-wise and Goodread-wise, I am still going to review every single book that I read. Whether it's a reread or if it's a new one, I'm going to do a review on Goodreads. I have to. That helps me remember. I'm going to do them on YouTube. Again, it helps me remember. And plus, I have subscribers now. You might want to know. So that's my challenge. In terms of YouTube, I'd like to make my videos better. I know they're a little bit shonky. I know the sound isn't great. I'm trying to figure out how to make the sound better. And I'm slowly trying to figure out how to edit things. I'm not a digital person by nature. I used to joke that I was a Luddite at heart. So editing videos or GoPros or anything like that is painfully slow for me still. Okay, so that's my 2024 reading challenge from Goodreads. Last year, I didn't really do any Goodreads challenges. I wanted to free myself up to read whatever I felt like when I felt like it, instead of having to read in themes. But I've missed my friends over at Aussie Readers. For many years, that was my online group that I chatted with the most, and I've met quite a few of them in person. We used to go out for lunch a couple of times a year. I miss my Aussie Readers. So this year, to keep myself involved in that community, I have accepted one annual challenge. It's the annual genre challenge. Anyone who's in Aussie Readers who likes, if you like Australian books, go over to Aussie Readers if you're not there already. For those of you who are there already, this one is set by Brenda. You've got multiple levels, and the easiest is 12 books, of which 3 of them need to be Australian readers. That's the theme, to get people reading more Australian readers, because on the international stage they don't always feature that heavily. I'm going to go for the laid-back level of 12 books. In the past, when I've gone for the lowest level on Aussie Readers, I've often ended up escalating to the busy level, which is 24 books, or even the out of control, which is 36 books, with a minimum of 9 Aussie Readers. So the genre challenge, you choose from a number of genres that are given you on a list, and when you've chosen them, you post the books that you're going to read, and I've already done that. I don't have all my 12, but I've got a start. So I'm going to show you the books that I've got. First of all is a fantasy called The Clairvoyance Glasses, A Vision Unexpected by Helen Goltz. I've met Helen Goltz. She's a Melbourne author. I really like her books, and they're really hard to get. I'd really hoped to get The Clairvoyance Glasses, but in the past, when I've tried to get her books, I haven't always succeeded. So fingers crossed. It sounds really good. The next genre is classic, and I've got this beautiful edition of Coral Island by R.M. Ballantyne. It's leather bound. It's got gold writing. It's really beautiful. I have this because a few years ago I did a literature challenge, I suppose you'd call it. My reading challenge for the year was to increase the number of books on my literature shelf or classics shelf that I hadn't read. And one of them that I read was Coral Island, but I didn't realise when I picked it up that it was an edited version. So I ended up reading a much edited version of Coral Island that ended up coming across as simplistic and a bit childish. I think Coral Island basically is a very naive style of writing. This is the book that originally sparked the Swiss Family Robinson, Robinson Crusoe, I think perhaps even Gulliver's Travels. It was a completely seminal work that triggered a lot of the Pacific Island type books. I want to read it in full, and now I've got it, so I can. For mystery, I'm still going to be reading a lot of science fiction. It is my goal, and I've got heaps of them and I enjoy it. But for my mystery, I'm going to read The Carpet Makers. This is a science fiction, but it also is classed as a mystery genre. It's by Andreas Esbach. It was originally written in German, I believe, and I can't remember who's translated this one. It's in here somewhere, and I'll mention that when I review it. Thank you very much for Beck for finding this for me. It's not an easy book to find, but her crazy internet skills did it for me. Really excited to read this one. Okay. I don't read a lot of memoir biographies, but I do get to a few a year. Over Christmas, Sue gifted me The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. She enjoyed it. She thought I might. I'm not really that interested in America as such, but I do recognize Michelle Obama as a really interesting person. And of course, Barack Obama's time in the White House was kind of, I guess, pivotal to America, and it was very interesting from the international point of view. So I'll read it. We'll see how we go. Its subtitle is Overcoming in Uncertain Times. I feel I've gotten more uncertain recently rather than less so. Okay, for non-fiction, this was another gift from Sue, The Remarkable Mrs. Ryby by Grantley Keyser. This is one of my Australian author-written books for this challenge. It is about it's set in 1791, about a woman who was a real woman who escaped the gallows in England only to come to the brutal new penal colony at Sydney Cove. The author, Grantley Keyser, is an award-winning journalist. I haven't read anything of his before, but it does come quite well recommended. I've got hopes. They're not huge hopes, but I've got hopes. It's the sort of history that I'll enjoy. For my young adult, Tim Winton. I've had Blueback for a while. I haven't read it because Tim Winton's work is almost incandescently beautiful. Everything of his that I've read, I've enjoyed, but he's a limited resource. He doesn't churn them out. He's no Agatha Christie. So when a new one comes out, I sort of gently cradle it. I don't want to use it up too fast. I do prefer his adult work rather than his young adult or children, but he's describing this as a fable for all ages. It's a beautiful cover. Look at that gorgeous cover. And yes, it is about the ocean because it's Tim Winton. This is another one of my Australian authors. Tim Winton is a West Australian who's been deeply involved in marine conservation, which speaks to my heart, but he is a beautiful author. I discovered him later in life and yeah, he's been great. Next, in the dystopian category, we've got The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I'll be reviewing all of these as I finish them, by the way. I read The Handmaid's Tale years ago. I'm going to say probably in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s. It was science fiction, so I automatically loved it. Obviously, I didn't read this copy. This is a brand new copy. I remember a few years ago, all of a sudden, everyone was, oh, The Handmaid's Tale. And I'm going, you know, I remember it. It was a good book. It was interesting. It made some excellent points. It was quite vivid at points. I don't remember it being the best book I ever read in my life, though. And the way everyone's reacting, it's like someone has just reinvented the wheel. So I've been tentative about reading it. I needed to wait for the hoo-ha to die down so I wouldn't be too annoyed. I'll reread it. I believe it's a good book. I have the follow-up to it as well. I might even read that this year. So we'll see how that dystopian novel goes. Next, I have got, in my award winner category, I've got Rendezvous with Rama. So we're still on the science fiction theme here, by Arthur C. Clarke. Rendezvous with Rama actually won at least 7 awards, not just one. I'm pretty sure the Hugo and the Nebula are among them. It's one of his more famous ones. I've noticed Arthur C. Clarke is one of those authors, any book of his you mention, someone says it's his most famous. So there's this one, there's Childhood's End, also his most famous. Nearly everything that he wrote early on is his most famous or most influential. Anyway, multiple award winner. That's in my award winner category. I am currently reading the one for my science fiction category, Startide Rising by David Brin. Wow. Where have you been all my life? Sorry for the dad joke. This is only the second book I've read by David Brin. The first one blew me away, and this one is blowing me even further away. So, written in the early 80s. I won't review it here because I will be reviewing it at length later on. Look at that beautiful cover, though. It is, I'm about halfway through. I'm absolutely loving it. This is the sort of book that I want to read more of and give more time to, which is why I'm only engaging for 100 books this year. Really good. Anyway, stop raving about it. Number 10 in contemporary is an Australian author. The Heart is a Star by Megan Rogers. If you watch all my reviews, you may have already seen the review for this one. This was the first one I read. It was the first book I read this year, I think, or maybe the second or third. It wasn't great, I've got to admit. The writing is very good, but there were a lot of things I didn't love it. But that's my contemporary out of the way and one of my Australian authors out of the way. So that's my annual 2024 challenge. That's only 10 out of 12, I know. I'm going to figure out the other ones later on. I'd like to make more of my challenge into sci-fi than not, but I'm going to have to think about the categories. There's some good and interesting categories in there. There's mysteries, there's thrillers, there's maybe a romance. It's been a while since I read a romance. There's rural romance. It's a very Australian theme. Humour, I don't read that much of. Historical mystery, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe crime. Crime, mystery, thriller. They can be good when I come across them. So, okay. There's that. Now, the book that I am reading is also the January group read for the Evolution of Science Fiction, another Goodreads group that I'm on. Haven't really participated much in that group. I've mostly gone there to sort of mine it for recommendations or reviews of books that I'm interested in. But it's number 2 in David Brin's Uplift series, and it was voted for the January 2024 group read. There's a few of us reading it. There's a couple of comments happening. I like it when I'm doing a group read and people comment. It's too sad and too common for people just to read it and go, yeah, that was good. I like discussing my books. So there we go. Reading challenges accepted. YouTube challenges, fingers crossed. I managed to do a bit more with the editing. I really think the sound, I might need a microphone because I have a Galaxy S whatever, and I'm meant to be able to set the microphone to point ahead, which would be better for recordings, but this phone won't do it. So, yeah. Recommendations for editing sites would be accepted. Recommendations for books are always accepted. And I know I'm a bit late in posting this. I worked over Christmas, I worked over New Year. I'm kind of a bit exhausted, but still reading. And you too should keep reading good books and reviewing good books if you so desire, because reviewing really is a thing. It makes the reading experience more intense, because while I finally understand what at school all those teachers were trying to do when they made us psychoanalyze the books we were reading instead of just enjoying them. They wanted us to be able to read with thought and become involved in the reading experience and the writing experience that the author had in ways you can't when you just read it for pure pleasure without thinking. So it took me quite a few decades to get there, but I've got there at last, and I am thoroughly enjoying more vibrant reading. It's not vibrant, more interactive, more thoughtful reading, something like that. Anyway, keep reading, read good books.